Thank you so much. Yeah. There is a lot to celebrate. There's kind of a definite sense of fertility in the air. You know, with the eggs and the bunnies and the baskets of goodies and flowers popping open everywhere. And for most Christians, it's a religious holiday. It's a culmination of their Holy Week and culminates in the death and resurrection of Jesus. But you don't have to be a Christian to love Jesus. He's my kind of guy. He was a rebel, a rabble-rouser, a radical thinker, a whistleblower, and I would say a yogi. There's a lot of lore about him traveling to India in those missing years and studying with the great saints of India. I think that's probably what happened. When I was in India a couple of times, I was struck by how much awareness people there have of him, even though they're Hindu and Muslim and all different kinds of Buddhists. The gurus of India really respect this man, Jesus. And Paramahansa Yogananda, for one of them who started Self-Realization Fellowship, he has Jesus at the center of the lineage of the great enlightened beings, including Krishna and Mahavatar Babaji and Swami Sri Krishnaswarji and those guys that are part of self-realization. Jesus is right in the middle. I find that fascinating, but not too surprising, because this is a person who made a deep and lasting impression on our collective subconscious. It's unfortunate how misunderstood he was and misinterpreted. However, teachings like ours honor people like him, and we think of Jesus as the great example, not the great exception. So our teaching honors and respects him as a master teacher, one among many, the great example. Well, what was he about? He wanted to help humanity wake up out of their superstitious view of reality, which was very prevalent where he lived at that time. And it was common in his part of the world. We talked about it last week a little bit. It was an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth. And here comes this rabble-rouser saying, no, it's about love and forgiveness. What was he teaching? Well, you know, actually he was teaching what we teach in parable and metaphor to a very simple people in a simpler time without the backup of science. And it was that part of the world. It worked at that time. But really, when he said, it is done unto you as you believe, that is a statement that we take seriously here. That our mind is a part of a universal consciousness and intelligence, the power that makes all things new, and it does it through ideas. It does it through the field of consciousness. That's its vehicle for expression. And so, as we believe means right now, as we're believing. As. Not if, as. Very powerful statement. He did not teach original sin, a literal heaven and hell. He didn't teach anything about the devil as an actual power opposing God. He did not teach that humans were worms of the flesh or sinners or fallen, you know. He used metaphor, and he taught that all of us are the beloved expression of one life. That there's one God common to all people. And this was an idea that got him in a whole pack of trouble. To claim that God was within every single person. You know, he referred to himself as the Son, but all people are. They couldn't hear it. It just scared people half to death. Heresy, right? And he was crucified for those beliefs and for speaking out loud. Now, he wasn't the first. I mentioned this before, but I think it's pretty interesting for people like us who our minds are very open and we're really interested in what went down. Welcome. Come on in, folks. And we're talking about the man Jesus and his influence on culture. So there are similar tales from many cultures around the world. One of the Buddhas, there were 14 Buddhas, and one of them was said to be born of a virgin, was a precocious child, performed so-called miracles, and was crucified on a tree and ascended. Same story, different cast of characters. You can find them throughout culture all over the world. There's over 150 of them. As I said last week, some of these stories predated Jesus by 1,000 years. So what does that mean? Well, it means the story means something. It means it's our story. It's about humanity. It's about our potential. It's not about one person. And it's about our spiritual self-awareness and how that takes us out of the realm of the law of averages. Thomas Troward, who taught metaphysics in the 19th century and an early part of the 20th, said something so profound. First time I heard this, I just about jumped out of my chair in class. I did that a lot. Woo, woo, woo. Listen to this. As we raise our level of self-awareness, who we are, I am the beloved expression of an infinite power. I am an individualization of what the world calls God. I am personification of quantum potential. I am here to express, that's right? Is that different from what you were raised with or thought? Yeah. Yeah, I got it out. Okay, so, but here was what he said. As you raise your level of self-awareness, you are less affected by the law of averages. Okay. The law becomes more specific to your word. See, there are laws in the universe that take care of the whole thing, and there are laws in the universe that are about individuals. There was a professor of philosophy here a couple of weeks ago that we were talking about this one thing, and he said, that's a point in Troward. He had never read him before, but he really loved, I told him to read this book, and he loved it. And he said, so I want to know, does that mean that by the law of averages, if humanity is going to take a big leap in awareness, that a lot of people are just going to die and leave the planet? I said, no, that's not what that means. It means as we all raise our level of self-awareness, we become more like co-creators and less like victims of nature or anything else, or our own consciousness. So that it starts to feel like God is specifying just for us. And Ernest Holmes said that, I found his teaching. He says, you begin to feel like something is custom designing your life. And you start saying things like, oh my God, I was just thinking about that. It just happened. Oh my God, everything's so easy. It just keeps falling into place. I don't really have to work too hard at it. That's what happens when you take yourself out of the law of averages. While you're in the law of averages, you win some and lose some, and you get sick and you get well, and you're happy and you're sad, and and that's what it's about. That is one law, but it is not the highest one. Spirituality takes us into a different law, a different level. This is what Jesus knew. Buddha knew it. They all knew it. Quantum physics knows it. Science is getting there. Right. So what have been known as miracles become ordinaries. You know, I think it was Einstein who said, everything's either a miracle or nothing is. You know, you sitting there in that chair is a miracle. When you think about it, you think about the intelligence in your body. I mean, you eat food and it grows hair. Come on. Toenails and cells. You don't have to do a darn thing about it. And even if you eat junk, it still does it. Maybe not for as long, but it does it. Life is a real mystery and a real miracle. And something to be grateful for all the time. Gratitude is the juice that keeps this body happy and keeps our life happy. Okay, so the celebration of Easter, like many of our holidays, Christmas included, was laid over a pagan holiday that already existed. It was the rites of spring. It was celebration of Esther, fertility. But there's a theme running through all of them. And the theme is life keeps resurrecting itself. Life is ever new and ever becoming. It is constantly on the move from the center out. and it is not repeating. It seems to repeat when we don't give it something new to do, right? That's why we're talking about the ladder of self-awareness. The higher we go with self-awareness, the more beautiful life seems to get, right? So less repetitious, more new. So in the 11th, I think 13th century, Meister Eckhart, who has greatly influenced modern thinkers, he said, life is forever begetting the only begotten. That's you. And that's every child that's born. And it's butterflies and elephants. It's forever begetting the only begotten. It's forever making new things out of itself. Not making old things, new things. And like every baby is a brand new version of human, right? And so are you, right? So am I. So there's a you and the me that is forever new. What sustains that is how we see ourselves. Just say this out loud. I am forever young. Don't you love that old song from the 60s? Joan Baez? Those people were right. They'll never get old because of the way they think. Right? The body. That's not a sign of age. That's just evolution. That's gravity. So there's a you and me that can rise up out of the mundane, the predictable, the mediocre, the law of averages. We can rise up, rise above. That's called transcendence. And that's what Jesus did. Miracles are not miracles. They are transcending the law of averages, applying a higher law. That's what happens. We're learning about those higher laws in this teaching. I could get really verklempt about this because it's so important what we're doing. So, we experience the human pain, we experience sorrow, but there's something about being human that is above that. If it weren't true, we would never recover from anything. We would never have made it out of the 4th grade. I'm not kidding. And we're even transcendent of our own physicality, which is what Dr. Holmes was talking about. Do we live forever in these bodies? No, but we're not our bodies, right? But who we are is aware of the body in this time-space dimension. But once the body is no longer a fit vehicle for it, or it's just bored, the self leaves. You know, I've been in the presence of people who've taken their last breath, and I'm sure you have too, and it's a very powerful experience because they were there and then they're not. They didn't die, they left. And you can tell it. You can feel it when you're in their presence. It's a wonderful experience. If you ever have a chance to sit with someone please take that opportunity, and you can be a great blessing to them, just sitting there and affirming their wholeness and their particular beauty and being thankful. I was sitting with a woman, a beautiful woman who was a singer, who had lung cancer. She had never smoked. And that's a very painful death. It's not a good death. And her son called me and said, please come and just talk to her. She was unconscious, but sort of conscious. And so I sat with her a long time, and I started talking to her, and I started saying things like, let's remember all the dances you attended and all the wonderful boyfriends you had and the great sex, and think of all the wonderful food you've eaten. And when I got to the sex part, she opened her eyes and said, thank you. And then she left. We all need to be validated, no matter what stage of life we're in. You know, when you're in trouble, someone needs to say, it's okay. You're greater than this. Rise up. You can do it. You're transcendent. You're so much better than your condition or your current situation. You're the power that makes all things new. It's right where we are all the time. So, humanity right now, let me back up a bit. I left a good section out here. The question today is, well, resurrection of the self is an ongoing theme in every self-help book in that bookstore, right? It's all about finding out who you are. It's the theme of therapy. It's in our own teaching. So let's ask ourselves, what do I need to resurrect in my life today? What do I need to resurrect in myself? Some more compassion, love, joy, peace, faith, trust. Do I need to resurrect an old dream that maybe I packed away and thinking that's never going to happen? Do I need to resurrect the little kid in me that knew and knew that it knew? Me. Do we need to resurrect that part of us? And rise up above what we've been taught, what we allowed to go into our consciousness, what's on the news doesn't define us at all. So where in our life do we need some renewal? That's a good question. And it's not about fixing yourself. It's not about becoming different. It's about a remembering and an asserting. So like the rose, love that version you sang, Shauna, it was magnificent. Like the rose, which begins as a possibility hidden under the ground. It begins as an ordinary bulb, just a little ugly thing under the ground. And it's under there during the winter and the ice and the snow and all of that. And then one day it reveals its true self and it becomes one of the most beautiful things on the planet, right? Is there anything more beautiful than a rose? You ever really looked at a rose and said, for heaven's sake, who did that? It's like a butterfly. Who would have thought of that? So much of who we are is hidden. Much of who we are is hidden, buried in our unconscious, but it can be resurrected. And how do you do it? You start with 2 words. What are they? You know what they are? I am. Those are the magic words. It wasn't please and thank you. It was I am. Humanity right now is crucifying old superstitions. And we are unconsciously trying to resurrect our infinite potential. That's why systems are failing, institutions are changing. Everything's up for renewal. Have you noticed? This has been going on about 30 years now. My dear friend Barbara Marx Hubbard, the futurist, made her transition last week or 10 days ago. She was a really dear friend. And this is what she was all about. Conscious evolution. This is our time to do it. This is our time to direct consciousness from the depths of our own being. So we're trying to acknowledge something. Instead of, oh, woe is me, look at everything's a problem, we say, no, something's trying to happen. Something really beautiful is trying to happen in the field of humanity, in the field of consciousness. It wants to be revealed like the rose. It wants to come out. It wants to be seen. It wants to be known. It's in us, right? So we have to make sure that we are being the rose and not the ugly bulb. Hidden, under the ground, not expressing, right? We're in the time of conscious evolution. Ernest Holmes actually coined that phrase before Barbara did, and he said, when humanity became aware that there was such a thing as evolution, that was the moment they had to start directing it. Taken out of the law of averages. Once you become aware of it, you're no longer governed by it, right? You partner with it. So we're meant to do that. So we're on the threshold of a new beginning, of being reborn in the image and likeness of Spirit. That's where we are, our own potential. And we're meant to be universal beings, knowing our interdependence and our oneness. And I'm going to show a video in May. I'm going to show a series of videos in May that I've been collecting over the years, but one of them I've shown to a class. It's by Barbara Marx Hubbard, and it's called Universal Ascending, and it's about Homo sapiens becoming Homo universalis. Huge shift, and she really believed that's what's happening. And that's why there's so much resistance to it, because all the old ways will disappear. So it begins with you and me. So I'm going to coin a little phrase today. Let's put all our eggs in one basket. And the basket of spiritual awakening beginning right now. All right? Okay, let's go with it. Yeah, so let's do it again. Let's awaken our heart and mind to this wonderful truth that has been resurfacing again and again and again and again and again down through the ages and has been suppressed again and again and again and again. But now it's up, it's out. And we owe people like Oprah. We owe people like Deepak and Wayne and Ernest Holmes, who kept this truth alive. It will never go underground again. As long as there are people like you in the world who are insisting that humans are greater than what they have already created, that there is a power for good in this universe. It's available to everyone, and we use it when we think. And the first thought we have is about ourselves. I am. So today, let's leave here with a new set of definitions. I am joy on the move. I am love in action. I am peace at the core of my being. I am creative. I am abundantly supplied. I have great ideas. I move from wealth to wealth to wealth. My body is vital, forever young, constantly recreating itself from that original matrix of wholeness. We need to know these things for ourselves. So today, my affirmation is this room is filled with enlightened beings. And we take our light out into the world and let it be seen. No more hiding under the bushel. No more denying of who we are. No more fussing and fuming about facts. Let's look at the truth and keep it alive, that we might be the great example and not the great exception. So today, with great gratitude for the time we've had together, for the wonderful music, the wonderful refreshments, the joy of being together, we let the energy of this morning stay with us and grow us and move us into new ways of being. And we do it with great gratitude, beginning right now. And so it is.